The distress beacon cut through the static like a knife through silence. Captain Marcus Vale adjusted his helmet's display, squinting at the coordinates floating in the corner of his vision. 3 days into what was supposed to be a routine patrol of the Kepler 442 system, and now this unidentified crash site on the barren moon of Zarian 7, Control. This is Ranger 6, Marcus spoke into his comm, his voice steady, despite the knot forming in his stomach. I'm picking up an emergency signal from the surface, requesting permission to investigate. The crackling response came seconds later. Negative, Ranger 6. Unknown vessels in that sector could be hostile. Maintain current heading. Marcus stared at the red blip on his scanner. Protocol was protocol, but something about the signals pattern nagged at him. It wasn't random, there was a rhythm to it, almost like a heartbeat. Someone down there was alive and trying very hard to stay that way. Control, I'm experiencing engine troubles, he lied smoothly. I need to set down. For emergency repairs. Before they could respond, Marcus cut the comm and angled his ship toward the moon's surface. Court-martial be damned, he'd never been able to ignore a distress call, and he wasn't about to start now. The crash site was worse than he'd expected. What had once been a sleek vessel now lay scattered across a crater, its hull split open like a broken egg. But it wasn't the destruction that made Marcus pause as he approached. It was the ship's design. The metal seemed to shift color in the pale moonlight, and strange symbols were etched along what remained of the hull. This definitely wasn't human. Technology. Moving carefully over the debris, Marcus followed his scanner toward the strongest life sign. It led him to a partially collapsed section where emergency lights still flickered weakly. That's when he saw her. It was unlike anything he'd ever encountered. Tall and elegant, even while unconscious, her skin had a faint luminescent quality that reminded him of starlight. Her hair cascaded around her shoulders in waves of deep violet. And she wore what could only be described as armor, though it looked more like art than protection, with intricate patterns that seemed to move in his peripheral vision. But what truly caught his attention was the obvious nobility in her bearing. Even injured and unconscious, there was something regal about her that made Marcus instinctively want to bow. "Hey," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open large, luminous orbs the color of distant nebulae. For a moment they stared at each other in mutual surprise. Then she spoke, her voice melodic despite its weakness. "You are ... not of the hegemony." Marcus blinked. She was speaking perfect English, though he could swear he'd heard something else entirely. Some kind of translation device, maybe. "I'm Captain Marcus Vale, Earth Defense Corps," he said, extending his hand. "You're hurt. Let me help you." She studied his face with an intensity that made him feel exposed. "Earth," she repeated, as if testing the word. "The warrior planet? Warrior planet?" Marcus couldn't help but smile. "Is that what they call us out here?" Among other things. Ghost of a smile crossed her features before pain flickered in her eyes. "I am Princess Zephyra of House Luminara, heir to the Veltheron throne, and I fear I am very far from home." Marcus felt his world shift. A princess. An alien princess, crashed on a dead moon with enemy forces probably not far behind. This was either going to be the greatest adventure of his life, or get him killed. Probably both. "Well, Your Highness," he said, carefully helping her to her feet. "Let's get you somewhere safe first. Then you can tell me how a princess ends up in a place like this." As they moved away from the wreckage, neither noticed the dark shapes moving. Across the horizon, drawn by the crash's energy signature, the hunt had already begun. The cave Marcus found wasn't much a shallow depression in the moon's rocky surface, but it would have to do. He'd managed to drag some emergency supplies from both their ships before the approaching storm made travel impossible. Now, as wind howled outside their makeshift shelter, he watched Princess Zephyra examine his field rations with obvious skepticism. "This is ... food?" she asked, holding up a nutrition bar as if it might bite her. "Technically," Marcus replied, activating a small heating unit. "It's not exactly gourmet, but it'll keep you alive." Zephyra's luminescent skin dimmed slightly, something he was learning indicated fatigue or distress. "On Velthera, we believe food should nourish both body and spirit. This appears to accomplish neither." Welcome to military life, Marcus said with a wry smile. Though I have to ask, how are we understanding each other? You're speaking English, but your lips. Neural interface, she said, touching a small crystalline device behind her ear. It translates thought into compatible communication patterns. Your species' dominant language was surprisingly easy to adapt to. Marcus stared. You can read minds? Surface thoughts related to communication? Yes. It's how we conduct diplomacy across the galaxy. Her expression grew serious. Which is why I was traveling to the Centauri Accords when my ship was attacked. Attacked? Marcus set down his own ration. By who? Zafira's eyes grew distant. Commander Nexus of the Shadow Fleet. He commands a faction that believes peaceful contact with emerging species like yours is... unwise. They prefer conquest to cooperation. The pieces clicked together in Marcus's mind. So your crash wasn't an accident. They shot you down. Indeed. And they will not stop hunting me. She looked at him intently. You should not have helped me, Captain Vale. Your involvement puts your entire species at risk. Marcus met her gaze steadily. My entire species has been taking risks since we figured out how to make fire. We're pretty good at it. Despite everything, Zafira laughed us sound like silver bells in starlight. You are not what I expected from a human warrior. Did you expect? Violence, aggression, single-minded pursuit of dominance? She paused. But you risked your career to answer a distress call from a stranger. You tend my wounds despite not knowing if I'm friend or enemy. Your actions contradict everything our intelligence report suggested about your people. Marcus felt a flush of embarrassment. Maybe your intelligence reports were listening to the wrong humans. Perhaps. Zafira studied him with those luminous eyes. Tell me about your world, Captain. What drives a human to become a soldier? For the next several hours, as the storm raged outside, they shared stories. Marcus told her about Earth's blue oceans and green forests, its wars and its wonders. He spoke of joining the Defense Corps not for glory, but because someone had to stand between the innocent and the darkness. In return, Zafira painted word pictures of Valthera, world of floating crystal cities and bioluminescent gardens, where art and science intertwined like lovers' hands. She spoke of the weight of responsibility, of being born to serve billions of souls across dozens of worlds. Your people crown their leaders, she said thoughtfully. Ours are chosen by the planet itself. The royal bloodline carries a symbiotic bond with Valthera's core consciousness. I can feel my world's pain, even from this distance. That sounds incredibly lonely, Marcus said quietly. Zafira's glow dimmed again. It is the burden of service. Personal desires must always be secondary to the greater good. And what do you desire? The question slipped out before Marcus could stop it. She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, to see if the stories are true. Stories, the ones that say, when two souls from different worlds touch, they create something new. Something that belongs to neither world, but to both. Her eyes met his. Human poets write of love, do they not? Marcus felt his heart skip. They do, so do ours. Perhaps that is the most universal language of all. Outside, the storm began to subside, but neither of them moved. In the growing quiet, Marcus realized that his carefully ordered military life was about to become very complicated, and for the first time in years, he found himself looking forward to the chaos. The morning brought silence and danger in equal measure. Marcus woke to find Zafira standing at the cave entrance, her body tense with alertness. Her skin had taken on a deeper luminescence. What he'd learned was her species' equivalent of adrenaline. They're here, she whispered without turning around. Marcus was beside her in seconds, his rifle ready. Through the cave mouth, he could see dark shapes moving across the barren landscape sleek. Predatory forms that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Shadow Fleet reconnaissance drones, Zafira confirmed. Commander Nexus isn't far. Behind, how long before they find us? Minutes, maybe less. Their scanners can detect my biosignature from orbit. She turned to him, her expression grave. There's something I haven't told you, Captain. The neural interface, it works both ways. If Nexus captures me alive, He can extract everything I know about Earth's defenses, your military capabilities, even the location of your homeworld. Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. Then we make sure he doesn't take you alive. You don't understand the magnitude. I understand plenty. Marcus checked his weapons and grabbed their emergency supplies. I understand that you're under my protection now, and I don't abandon my responsibilities. Ever. They moved deeper into the moon's cave system, following natural passages that twisted through the rock. Behind them, Marcus could hear the high-pitched whine of alien technology scanners probing every crevice. This way, Zafira said, leading him toward what looked like a solid wall. But as they approached, ancient symbols began to glow faintly in the stone. These ruins predate both our civilizations. The first builders left sanctuaries throughout this sector. The wall dissolved like mist, revealing a chamber filled with softly glowing crystals. The moment they stepped inside, Marcus felt a strange, tingling sensation, as if the air itself was alive. The crystals interfere with scanning technology, Zafira explained. But they won't hide us forever. As if summoned by her words, a voice echoed through the cavern's cold, mechanically precise, and utterly without mercy. Princess Zafira of House Luminara, you've led us quite a chase. Commander Nexus's words seemed to come from everywhere at once. Surrender yourself, and your human pet will be granted a quick death. Charming guy, Marcus muttered, positioning himself at the chamber entrance. Any idea how many he brought? Nexus never travels with fewer than a dozen Shadow Guard. They're genetically enhanced for hunting, with reflexes that make your fastest warriors look like statues. Good thing I don't plan on fighting fair. Marcus began placing explosive charges at strategic points around the chamber entrance. He'd learned long ago that when facing superior numbers, you changed the rules of engagement. What are you doing? Zafira asked. Something they won't expect from a primitive human. Marcus activated his CUM unit. Computer, patch into local geological databases. I need a structural analysis of this cave system. Data flowed across his helmet, display stress points, support beams, areas of weakness. A plan began to form. Princess. Nexus's voice was closer now. Your silence only delays the inevitable. My forces have surrounded this facility. You have nowhere to run. He's right about that, Marcus admitted. So we're not running. The first Shadow Guard appeared at the tunnel, mouth a nightmare figure in dark armor that seemed to bend light around its edges. Marcus didn't hesitate. He triggered the first set of charges. The explosion brought down half the tunnel, but more. Shapes were already moving through the debris with inhuman speed. Marcus opened fire, his bullets finding their marks but barely slowing the attackers. That's when Zafira surprised him. Light erupted from her hands. Not the gentle glow he'd grown accustomed to, but brilliant, searing radiance that sent the Shadow Guard reeling. She moved like liquid starlight, her every gesture creating barriers of pure energy. You're a warrior, Marcus said, awed despite the danger. I am what my people need me to be, she replied, deflecting an energy blast. Today they need me to survive. Working together, they held the chamber for precious minutes. Marcus's tactical training, combined with Zafira's impossible abilities, created a defense that even Nexus's elite forces couldn't penetrate quickly. But it couldn't last. There are too many, Zafira said, her glow beginning to flicker with exhaustion. Then it's time for Plan B. Marcus triggered his final set of charges, not at the entrance, but at the chamber's ceiling. Ancient stone crashed down, but instead of trapping them, it opened a passage to the surface. Sunlight streamed through the opening, and with it, the sound Marcus had been hoping for. Ranger 6, this is Fleet Command. We have your position. Reinforcements inbound. 3 Earth defense ships screamed overhead, their weapons already charging. In the distance, Marcus could see Nexus's forces retreating to their own vessels. As rescue teams rappelled into the chamber, Zafira took his hand. Her skin was cool against his, but the touch sent warmth racing through his entire body. You called for help, she said quietly. I activated an emergency beacon when we first took shelter. My people don't abandon their own either. Zafira smiled, and in that moment, Marcus realized that the most dangerous part of their journey was just beginning. The Veltheran capital of Luminous defied every expectation Marcus had formed about alien cities. Instead of cold metal towers, crystal spires grew from living rock like massive trees, their surfaces pulsing with gentle bioluminescence. Gardens floated in midair, connected by bridges of solid light, while beings of impossible beauty moved through the streets with fluid grace. "Welcome to my world, Marcus Vale," Zephyra said, as their transport glided silently between the towers. She had changed into ceremonial robes that shifted color with her emotions. Currently, a deep blue that Marcus was learning indicated nervousness. "Incredible," he breathed, watching a school of flying creatures that looked like living jewels spiral past their window. "But why do I get the feeling I'm not exactly welcome?" Zephyra's expression tightened. "The High Council has concerns about my association with a human. They fear it sends the wrong message about our species' superiority." "Superiority?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Yesterday you were telling me how much we had in common. I was speaking from the heart. The Council speaks from fear." She touched his hand briefly. "But there is one whose opinion matters most. High Counselor Thane was my mentor, my teacher. If I can convince him..." The transport settled onto a landing platform carved from a single enormous crystal. As they disembarked, Marcus was acutely aware of the stares following them, beings of ethereal beauty whose eyes held mixtures of curiosity, disgust, and sometimes fear. "Am I the first human they've seen?" he asked quietly. "The first they've seen walking freely beside royalty," Zephyra replied. "Most human contact has been ... formal, diplomatic, distant." The palace was a wonder of organic architecture, its walls seeming to breathe with life. Corridors shifted subtly to accommodate their passage, while soft music seemed to emanate from the very air. But despite its beauty, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Judged, High Counselor Thane awaited them in the Chamber of Echoes, a vast dome where whispered words could be heard clearly from any point. He was ancient even by Veltheran standards, his luminescence dim but steady, like stars viewed from across vast distances. "Princess Zephyra," he said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "You return to us changed. I return having learned truths that challenge our assumptions," honored Thane. The old counselor's gaze fixed on Marcus with unsettling intensity. "This is the human who rescued you. He appears smaller than our reports suggested your species would be." Marcus straightened. "With respect, Counselor, I didn't realize size was a measure of character among your people." A ripple of surprise went through the assembled court. Zephyra stepped closer to Marcus, her robes shifting to a warning shade of gold. "You speak boldly for one so far from home," Thane observed. "Tell me, human, what do you seek here?" The honest answer would have been complex. He sought understanding, connection, perhaps something deeper with Zephyra. But Marcus chose simplicity. "Seek to return a princess to her people safely." "Nothing more? Nothing more?" Thane's luminescence brightened slightly. "Not alliance, not technology, not the elevation of your primitive world. My world stands, or falls on its own merits," Marcus replied evenly. "I won't apologize for what we are, but I won't claim we're something we're not." For a long moment, silence filled the chamber. Then Thane did something unexpected. He laughed, a sound like gentle rain on crystal. "Zephyra, you have found a peculiar champion, one who asks for nothing while offering everything." The ancient being studied Marcus with new interest. Perhaps there is wisdom in this approach. Over the following days, Marcus underwent what he came to think of as diplomatic boot camp. Zephyra taught him the intricate courtesies of Veltheran society, the subtle meanings behind changes in luminescence, the complex etiquette that governed royal interactions. When High Counselor Vex dims his light while speaking, it means he's lying, she explained during one session. But when Counselor Lina brightens suddenly, she's either excited or about to challenge someone to ritual combat. "Your people solve disputes through combat?" Marcus asked. "Sometimes. Though ours is more artistic than yours, a dance of light, and movement that tests wisdom as much as strength." Zephyra's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Would you like to learn?" The next hour was both frustrating and exhilarating, as Zephyra tried to teach Marcus the flowing movements of Veltheron combat dance. His human reflexes were too linear, too rigid for the flowing patterns her people used. "You fight like your thoughts," she observed. Direct, practical, efficient. But sometimes the beautiful path and the effective path are the same. Show me, Marcus said. What followed was less lesson than revelation. Zephyra moved like living music, her body telling a story of conflict and resolution, of darkness yielding to light. When she finally stopped, both were breathing hard, standing closer than proper etiquette would approve. I begin to understand, Marcus said softly, why your people see art in everything. And I begin to understand, Zephyra replied, why humans accomplish so much despite having so little time. You burn bright, Marcus Vale? Their moment was interrupted by the arrival of a messenger young, flustered, his luminescence flickering. With urgency, Princess, Counselor Thane requests your immediate presence. There has been ... a development. In the council chamber, Thane's expression was grave. Princess, we have received communication from the Shadow Fleet. Commander Nexus demands your surrender, along with the human. He claims the right of pursuit under ancient law. What ancient law? Marcus asked. The law of broken sanctuary, Zephyra, said, her voice hollow. If a fugitive seeks shelter among allies, the pursuer may claim them if the alliance is deemed unworthy. Marcus felt the trap closing around them. And they're claiming the human alliance is unworthy. Precisely. Thane's luminescence dimmed. The council is divided. Some believe we should honor Nexus's claim to avoid conflict. Others argue that to surrender you would be an unconscionable breach of hospitality. What do you believe, Honored Thane? Zephyra asked. The ancient counselor was quiet for a long moment. I believe, he said finally, that some choices define who we are more than who we were.
The question is, what are we willing to become?
As if in response to his words, alarms began to sound throughout the palace. Through the chamber's crystalline walls, Marcus could see dark shapes descending from the sky. The Shadow Fleet had arrived. The palace transformed around them as defensive systems activated. Crystal walls became transparent, revealing weapon emplacements that emerged from the living architecture like flowers blooming in fast motion. Throughout Luminous, citizens moved, with practiced efficiency, toward secure shelters, while the Royal Guard took defensive positions. How many ships? Zephyra asked. Her robes now cycling through rapid color changes that Marcus recognized as her species' version of battle readiness. 12 dreadnoughts, reported General Calix, the Guard's commander. They're holding position just outside. Our defensive perimeter. Nexus is requesting ... Parley. High Counselor Thane's luminescence flickered with ancient anger. That butcher speaks of parley after threatening our world. He knows our ways, Zephyra said grimly. But under the old codes, we cannot refuse a formal request for negotiation. Marcus stepped forward. Then let me go to him. The chamber fell. Silent. Every eye turned toward him, luminescent gazes wide with shock. Marcus, no, Zephyra said immediately. He'll kill you the moment you're aboard his ship. Maybe, or maybe there's another way. Marcus looked around the assembly, meeting each gaze steadily. You said the law of broken sanctuary allows him to claim fugitives if the alliance is unworthy. What if the alliance isn't between your people and mine, but between Zephyra and me personally? A bond of stars, whispered Counselor Lena, her brightness flaring with sudden understanding. Ancient law recognizes such bonds as superseding all others. Thane leaned forward, his ancient eyes intense. You speak of soul-bonding human. Our people, this is not merely symbolic. It is a joining of life forces that cannot be broken save by death. Are you prepared for such a commitment? Marcus looked at Zephyra, seeing his own feelings reflected in her luminous gaze. I've been prepared since the moment I found her in that wreckage. The ritual cannot be completed quickly, Zephyra said, though hope was beginning to brighten her voice. And Nexus will not wait, then we make him wait. Marcus turned to General Calix. How long can your defenses hold against a full assault? Perhaps an hour? Then we have 45 minutes to change the rules of this game permanently. What followed was unlike any military operation Marcus had ever been part of. While weapons charged and defensive positions were reinforced, He found himself in a circle of the realm's eldest counselors, learning words in a language that predated human civilization. The bond of stars requires absolute truth, Thane explained. As they prepared, you must speak not just with words, but with the deepest intentions of your heart. Any deception, any reservation, will cause the ritual to fail. I understand. Do you? The ancient being studied him intently. This bond, if successful, will tie your life to hers across any distance. You will feel her pain, share her joys, and when one dies, the other will follow within days. There is no greater commitment in all the galaxy. Marcus nodded, his resolve unwavering. Through the crystal walls, he could see Nexus's fleet moving closer. Their dark ships, like spreading stains against the starfield. The ritual began as alarms continued to sound throughout the city. Zephyra stood across from him in the center of an ancient pattern carved into the chamber floor, her hands extended, palms up. Marcus took them in his own, feeling the familiar, cool warmth of her touch. Speak, Thane commanded. I am Marcus Vale of Earth, Marcus began, the formal words coming easier than expected. I offer my light to join with yours, my strength to support your own, my life to stand beside yours, until the stars themselves fade. Zephyra's response came in her own language first, musical syllables that seemed to resonate in the crystal around them. Then in English, I am Zephyra of House Luminara, daughter of Valthera. I accept your light, your strength, your life, and offer mine in return. Let us burn as one flame against the darkness. The moment their words ended, Marcus felt something fundamental shift inside him. Light flowed between their joined hands, not just visible illumination, but something deeper. He could sense Zephyra's emotions, her thoughts, her very essence mixing with his own. It is done, Thane announced, his voice filled with wonder. By ancient law and stellar right, you are bonded beyond the reach of any earthly authority. Through their new connection, Marcus felt Zephyra's amazement, her joy, and underneath it all, her fierce determination. Time's up, General Calix reported, Nexus's demanding response. Marcus and Zephyra walked together to the palace's main communication array, their steps perfectly synchronized. When Nexus's image appeared a figure in armor so dark it seemed to devour light, his mechanical voice carried undertones of rage. Princess Zephyra, you will surrender yourself and the human immediately. I am afraid that is no longer possible, Commander, Zephyra replied serenely. Captain Vale and I are now bound by the law of stars. Any attempt to take one of us by force would require you to kill us both. Nexus's image flickered with what Marcus interpreted as frustration, a convenient deception. Test it, Marcus challenged, stepping forward. Your scanners can detect life bonds. Look for yourself. Long moments passed. Finally, Nexus spoke again, his tone now carrying a note of uncertainty. This changes nothing. You have merely chosen to die together. Actually came a new voice from behind them. It changes everything. Marcus turned to see a figure in Earth Defense Corps' dress uniform approaching Ambassador Cross, Earth's senior diplomat, flanked by a full honor guard. Ambassador? Marcus said, surprised. How did you get here so quickly? Your emergency? Beacon, Captain. When we lost contact after your engine troubles, Admiral Chen ordered a full search and rescue operation. We've been monitoring your situation, Cross smiled grimly. Imagine our surprise when our scans detected a bonding ceremony in progress. Zephyra squeezed Marcus's hand. Ambassador Cross, I should explain. No explanation necessary, Your Highness. By the law of stars, Captain Vale is now your official consort, which makes him a foreign dignitary under Earth's protection. Cross turned to Nexus's image. Commander, you are now threatening not one but two sovereign governments. Are you prepared for that level of escalation? Through the communication array, Marcus could hear multiple voices speaking urgently in the background of Nexus's transmission. The Shadow Fleet commander's image wavered as he consulted with unseen advisors. This is not over, Nexus finally snarled. Yes, it is, Zephyra said firmly. By your own laws, Commander, you have no claim on either of us. Withdraw your fleet, or face the consequences. The transmission cut abruptly. Within minutes, the dark shapes in Velthera's sky began to move away, disappearing into the void from which they had emerged. As celebration erupted throughout the palace, Marcus found himself alone with Zephyra on a balcony overlooking the city. The twin suns were setting, painting the crystal spires in shades of gold and crimson. So he said, marveling at the bond, that now let him sense her contentment, her love, her hope for the future. What happens now? Zephyra smiled, her luminescence soft and warm in the twilight. Now we write a new story, Marcus Vale. One that belongs to neither Earth nor Velthera, but to both. In the distance, the first stars were appearing in the darkening sky, distant suns that no longer seemed quite so far away.